Hey, it's Brandon Lewis here. Should you use debt to grow your painting business? It is a question people often ask me, and in this episode of Standing with Brandon, because we're not walking anywhere, I'm going to explain to you my personal thoughts on debt and also what I have seen over the years conducting roughly 2,700 diagnostics. So what you can see here is my last mortgage statement. Okay, it's my last mortgage statement. About 3 or 4 weeks ago, maybe longer, I paid the house off. So what you see behind you here is about at one point, according to the assessor of property, which who knows if it's right or not, according to the assessor of property, this home behind you is worth $1.6 million. Okay, and so I think for the most part, everyone should pay off their personal home, be personally debt-free, and then burn their mortgage, right? I don't think you should be carrying debt if you can do it. With all that having been said, there is a time and a place for debt in a painting business, and there are specific types of debt that you may or may not consider getting into. And to help us, I've created an outline. So first, should you use debt to grow your painting business? Everything you see back here is paid for, right? 4.5 acres, a whole bunch of fancy cars in the garage, a very nice mansion out in the middle of the woods. And I had lived debt-free before I moved here, and I thought I was going to be able to move into this house debt-free, but then I had a contractor that could not budget, and the cobbler's kids never have shoes, so I, took a little bit of a bath, and then COVID hit, and so everything spiked, and we were in the middle of it, and there was no turning back. But it took me about 2.5 years to go ahead and pay this house off. And generally speaking, when it comes to debt in the painting business, aside from personal stuff, this is my opinion. So in painting, what happens if you're doing things correctly and you're hitting 50% gross profits is you're putting $5,000 of labor in from Monday to Friday, and on Friday somebody's giving you a $10,000 check. If you're not cash flowing, if you're not making money, it's unlikely that getting into debt is going to fix that. It is far more likely that the mechanics of your business are broken, that there are key metrics, there are key systems that are just messing it up. So what about personal debt in general? Because a lot of you, may have some personal debt. Sometimes you'll hear people tell you that mortgage debt is good, although as I looked at all the investments out there that were available to me, none of them gave me the return on investment of the annual interest being paid off on this house. I looked every which way. I was like, no, this is still the best return on investment is for me not to pay tens of thousands of dollars in interest this year, but instead to just get rid of this payment. So one thing I have to think about with personal debt is my own personal core convictions. And there's a book I read on that, and it's called the Bible. And in Proverbs, it says, don't be one of those who enters into agreement, who puts up security for loans. If you have nothing with which to pay, even your bed will be taken from under you, which is true. And I'll get to that in a minute. The rich rule over the poor, and the borrower is a slave to the lender. And finally, my favorite one, give no sleep to your eyelids, no slumber to your eyes, and deliver yourself like a gazelle from the hand of the hunter, a bird from the hand of the fowler. So the Bible, for the most part, doesn't say that, doesn't say that getting into debt is like a sin, but I can't see anywhere that it shows it in a positive light. Okay, and you can look at different situations like in Nehemiah where people were, getting into debt and enslaving their kids to other folks, and both the Lord and Nehemiah spoke out on that. So generally speaking, the tone and tenor around debt is not good. And I think that the scriptures are not just a spiritual thing. I think they're also a practical guide for living. So debt, personal debt, I think should be used occasionally for like the initial purchase of a vehicle. And by that I mean your first vehicle. Once you get your first vehicle paid, you just need to take that payment and just put it in the bank as if you had a car payment for maintenance. And then when that balance gets big enough, if you want to get something bigger or better, you've got equity in your car, and now you've got savings in the savings account, and that should be able to roll over again and again for personal vehicles. Those should all be purchased cash. The initial purchase of your home, right? I think that's a great investment mechanism and a tool. So the first time you buy a home, by all means, but put down a big enough down payment that you can afford the house. And in my opinion, if you cannot make the payment on a 15-year note, you either have not put enough money down or your budget just won't carry it. Don't do a 30-year mortgage. That's my opinion. So long term, when you pay them both off, both your home and your cars, you can just start taking that money and putting it into investments or buying other properties, things of that nature. You should never get into debt because you fail to make a personal budget, that you don't stick to it, and you should never acquire debt for furniture. I know it sounds crazy. Clothes, regular purchases, vacations. Don't run up a credit card balance. I don't see this doing painters any favors ever when I survey them, when I talk to them. So what's bad debt in a painting business? A Hail Mary loan. I see people all the time. They've been in business 5, 6, 7, 10 years. The business is just freaking losing money. So what do? Instead of going out and figuring out what's wrong with the business, they go get themselves further in debt. But the problem is the business still sucks, so they can't even service the debt payments. So again, most of the time when you've got problems in your painting business, debt is not the solution. Okay, it's just going to make a bigger problem. I think that bad debt is also having a line of credit for slow-paying jobs, but then you turn it into a crutch for personal income or for business problems. Financing and leasing expensive new vehicles. I can't tell you how many times I've worked with owners and we get down to their cash flow statement and they've bought like $15,000, $60,000 trucks, vans, what the heck ever. And I'm like, I would never do that. Buy them used, buy them cash, pay the maintenance bill, buy one extra if you have to in case one gets down, right, in the shop, so that reliability is not an issue. But you really should be able to pay as you go. And factoring, you need to stay away from completely. And credit card debt. If you're going to have any credit card debt, it should be no more than your monthly obligations. Now, I had preferred to run all my businesses for as long as I can remember off debit cards, but we had some fraud a couple of years ago, maybe 3, and I couldn't get a business account consumer protection on some very false, very obvious charges that were the same number recurring over and over again. So we started using credit cards, not because of not having the money in the bank, but because the debit card for commercial just didn't carry any protections of any significance. So we were left holding the bag there. Now, what is good debt for a painting business? I think if you put a down payment and you buy your own shop, preferably one that's got leasable space, that is a huge boon. I think I cleared about $500,000 doing that and holding on a building for 14 years, and I made money because the building was paid off while people were leasing part of it from me. So, I mean, I don't know how much money I made out of that building, but it was a lot, and I needed a place to hang my hat anyway. Going into debt for equipment that can be used quickly to make money. So if you need to finance a diamond grinder to do an epoxy floor job, and it's pretty big, and you're going to pay for half of the equipment with the job, and you can pay the equipment off in 2 or 3 months, okay, and you can find other work for it. Okay, that sounds reasonable to me. Accounts receivable financing, specifically the type that's SBA backed that has a reasonable rate. I think that is a good thing to do. If you're in commercial, somebody's going to take 90, 60 days to pay, and you've got an opportunity, but you just don't have the cash on hand. I think that's a good idea. But ultimately, in painting, you want to be your own bank. And by say in painting, as an owner, be your own bank, you want to be able to finance or pay cash for your own vehicles, for your own equipment, for everything that the business needs. It needs to be self-sufficient. At 50% gross profits, if your business should cash flow well, right? Unless you just got exorbitant overhead, in which case that needs to be addressed. But debt ain't going to fix it. Debt ain't going to fix it. And even when you go to sell your own business one day, or sell your building, or sell properties, often taking a big down payment and then taking monthly payments from the purchaser so that you get the interest now, the compound interest payments, you're the bank. Now that's nice. I'm the bank right now for my commercial building. I got a big chunk up front, but every month I get almost $4,000 from the guy, and I'm out, right? And if he doesn't make all his payments, I take the building back. It's just fine. Same thing for any other type of personal financial banking you can do. If you can be your own bank, it surely is good. Don't overextend yourself. That's what I see a lot of people do. They buy too big a house, too new a car, too much fancy equipment, and they just focus on that top line vanity number of sales, but they're not really focused on that bottom line number. Are you making personal income that is at the level you need to be at, which is somewhere around 25 to 30% cash flow to owner? And so generally speaking, I have found debt to be a negative thing for painting businesses. And most often debt is used improperly, and it is used to mask business problems that really need to be fixed. So if you are in debt up to your eyeballs and you want to get out of it, I've helped countless people get out of it. If you're thinking about going into debt, don't go into debt. Let me take a look at your business first. There's probably something you can do to avoid this. And if you do go into debt, follow the rules that I just put out there. Be safe, be conservative, and ultimately it will snowball. Finally, let me just say this. A lot of people will listen to this video and they will say, oh, but you can make more money if you borrow and let other people and right, and all that stuff. And to a degree, it may be true on rental properties and things of that nature. But there's something else that folks don't realize, and that's peace of mind. Peace of mind and margin, and knowing that at any point in time you could quit working, or that you could shed a little bit of overhead immediately and be in a good financial position. Like, that peace of mind is priceless to Brandon Lewis. I sleep with my head on the pillow a little bit better at night when I know I'm not in debt. You know, it really bothered me to have a mortgage on this house. Like, it just ate at me. And so this year I was like, I'm not going to do that anymore. Are we a little cash poor right now since I made that big payment? Yeah. But we got more than we'll ever need, even if there's some kind of massive emergency, and we've got all this equity sitting in the house if worse comes to worse. And so, guys, I would just encourage you, try to stay out of debt, be your own banker. It's not just my advice. It comes from another place as well. I think it's worth following. Guys, what do you think about debt? Click the follow button, the subscribe button, leave us a comment in the comments section. Brandon Lewis here with the Painters Academy. If you need me, just email me, brandon@paintersacademy.com, or call me, 423-800-0520. Love you, mean it. Talk to you next time.